The Moss Report is brought to you by Mycolife, makers of the world's best mushroom extracts, including the Moss Method mushroom formula, available exclusively at mycolife.us. Hello, healers. My name is Ben, and this is the Moss Report. I'm here today with my father, author and founder of the Moss Report, Dr. Ralph W. Moss, and our very special guest, Sylvie Beljanski. And Sylvie is the daughter of renowned biochemist and research scientist, Dr. Mirko Beljanski. She's also the author of the book Winning the War on Cancer, as well as the CEO and director of the Beljanski Foundation and the director of the Beljanski Integrative Cancer Conference. That's a lot. Welcome, Sylvie.
Yes, thank you. And indeed, and you did not even mention Maison Beljanski. So yes, it's a lot, and I'm really grateful for the opportunity to speak about also those exciting things with both of you, and being able to share the legacy of my father with you too, who are carrying so much history and an important legacy of the world of integrative medicine.
Well, hi.
Hi.
Hi. So I've spent the last couple of days, surfing around in PubMed and doing my usual way. When I'm presented with a topic, I usually take as deep a dive as I can into the literature. So what I'm coming away with is that there is substantial evidence at the laboratory level of the effectiveness of some of your father's ideas and his and particularly the two remedies that he's most famously associated with. But I'd like, if you could, to sort of sketch out for me and for our viewers the development of these ideas, because I mean, we met when you first started the foundation, and it was, of course, a very exciting time and very hopeful time. But I don't think I've kept up as much as I could have or should have with how this has unfolded over the last couple of decades. So take us back to, like, when did the connection with cancer first emerge from your father's work?
Oh, my father's research, started back in the 50s, 60s. So at the time, the official thinking of scientists was that everything was genetic. Watson and Crick has just discovered the double helix of the DNA, and there was a lot of hope in the scientific community with the development of anything genetic medicine. And the idea was commonly, around, was that cancer was only a genetic disease. But my father was one of the first one to look at the environment and says, if it was only genetic, the number of cancer would be pretty stable. But we see an increase in the number of cancer. That was already the 60s, 70s. And that means that there's probably something in the environment that triggers eventually some mutation or something that induce a change at the cellular level. And that started him to research how some molecules in the environment are affecting our DNA. And he created a test that he called the OncoTest, where he was able to screen in the laboratory the effect of a number of molecules on the DNA. And he observed that some molecules were able to induce what he called a destabilization of the DNA, an opening of the two strands of the DNA. And he made also the observation that cancer DNA is always open compared to healthy cells, the DNA of healthy cells. So there is a fundamental difference between the two strands of the DNA, always open when there is cancer, and whether you look at animal kingdom, human kingdom, plant kingdoms, you always make this observation. So he looked to really create a library of molecules that would induce this destabilization of the DNA, were carcinogenic. Then he found a number of molecules that had no effect on the opening of the DNA. And then he found some molecules that would selectively inhibit the duplication of cancer DNA and had no effect on healthy DNA. And that's what he called, the perfect anti-cancer substance. And he was able to find not one, but two plant extracts able to do that. Back in the 70s also, there was some kind of controversy around an extract of Rauwolfia vomitoria. Rauwolfia vomitoria was well known and very much used at the time to lower blood pressure, but it was also associated with some increase of breast cancer. So he looked at this Rauwolfia vomitoria, and he found that there were actually two alkaloids in the Rauwolfia vomitoria extract. One called reserpine that was able to lower the blood pressure but was also toxic and would induce a destabilization of the DNA. But also another alkaloid called alstonine that would have an anti-cancer benefit. So he purified the Rauwolfia to really have an extract devoid of reserpine but rich in alstonine. It's a lot of work. You lose a lot of raw material. So from there, he looked in books to find another molecule that would be similar to the alstonine. And that led him to find flavopereirine, which is coming from the Pereira, Gessospermum velocis, that's the Latin name. And flavopereirine is also able to selectively recognize cancer cells, penetrate cancer cells, and leave alone healthy cells. So you have plant extracts which are able to address all kinds of cancer cells, wherever they are located. Doesn't matter anymore if you are speaking of breast, prostate, ovaries, lung, and no toxicity, no side effects on healthy cells. If you do not have cancerous cell or precancerous cell, you eliminate the product in a matter of hours. And when you go under the microscope, under UV light, you can see that both of those plant extracts happen to be naturally fluorescent. And you can see they penetrate the nucleus, the nucleoli of cancerous cells, and they create some kind of halo around healthy cells and never penetrate them.
And all of this work was done before the discovery of the cancer stem cell.
Oh, yes. Nobody was speaking of cancer stem cells. That was really the 70s, the 80s. And my father published all of his work. He got the interest of a lot of doctors, French doctors. He was a scientist at the Pasteur Institute in Paris, France. It was really a French story. And a lot of patients started to use those products with great success. And now we are in the 90s, early 90s, and François Mitterrand, the French president, is diagnosed with advanced prostate cancer. It is the beginning of his second term, and the official doctor of the French White House says, well, he's not going to finish his second term. Terms were 7 years at the time. Forget about it. The cancer has spread everywhere. We are going to give him some morphine, and we are going to have to prepare the country for early elections. But Mitterrand had a mistress, and the mistress knew about a good doctor who had good results on prostate cancer by using my father's products. And Mitterrand started to take the products. There was no social media at the time, but yet, I mean, that was the president. So he was, on TV, and everybody could see that the president was doing better and better. And that started some rumors, and with rumors, controversies, and some powerful people were absolutely infuriated that because that was giving some kind of legitimacy to integrative medicine. Suddenly, some natural plant extracts, meaning it had to be hocus pocus, woo woo, something, was doing better than and beating the odds of pharmaceuticals. So there was some kind of statu quo. As long as Mitterrand was alive, he was able against all odds to finish his second term. But a few months after he finally passed away, the French government sent a SWAT team with machine guns, dogs, and helicopters surrounding the laboratory to destroy the laboratory. And they also managed to radiate my father. And 2 months later, he was diagnosed with advanced myeloid leukemia. And I grew up in this family of several generations of scientists. I thought growing up that I absolutely did not want to get involved in medicine. I did not want to be surrounded by sick people. I thought this is absolutely not for me. But I saw, I grew up seeing is that what my parents was doing, whatever it was helping people. And when my father passed away, I went to the funerals, and there were all those people telling me, without your father, I would not be here. I would not be able to walk my daughter down the aisle. I would not have been able to play with my grandchildren. And I felt I cannot let them down. I just have to do something. I just cannot allow the barbarians to destroy a knowledge that can help people and make a difference. And I was very shocked by the way the French government acted. They did not respect any due process. They did not give my father his day in court. We had to take the French government to the European Court of Human Rights, where we won an unanimous case, because the French government would rather lose the case than explain what they had done and why they had done so. Yeah. So at the first, I was all about revenge, about, I was furious with the French government. That was my first thing. But very quickly, I realized that it was just negative emotions, and the most important was to carry the legacy, to make sure that this knowledge would not disappear. That was the best outcome I could make happen. And that's why I started the Beljanski Foundation here in New York as a 501c3 with the goal to carry on with the research. At the beginning, the idea was just to confirm that my father was right, those ideas was right, that those plant extracts that he had described were indeed doing what he said they were doing. And in order to have the products available for the research, I had to create a company to make the products available. And so that one thing led to another. And I at some point, I invited a number of French doctors who had been working closely to my father, who wanted to introduce myself and let them know that I was committed to carry on with the legacy, but I needed their help. And I was able to create this event in New York City. That was 1999. And I was very lucky to have also the interest of a handful of American doctors. One of them was Dr. Michael Schachter. I don't know if you have known him, but he was absolutely wonderful man, open-minded, And he was totally blown away by what he heard from his French colleagues. And he told me, well, you know, I have a patient with advanced pancreatic cancer. The poor fellow doesn't have much to lose. I'm going to try your product and see what happens. And then like 2 weeks later, he calls me and says, the poor fellow is doing much better. So I'm going to need more product because I'm going to put some other patients also on the product. Then 1 year later, he told me, well, now I have enough good cases. I'm going to publish. And he published a paper in FIME. And I was so pleased. The first American paper, I gave a copy to everybody I knew, including my banker. And the banker was a patient of Dr. Aaron Katz, who was head of holistic urology at Columbia University. Then Columbia University calls me and says, hey, it looks like you have something interesting here. Can we talk? And that's how I was able to start a series of partnerships with a number of academic institutions here in the States. And over the years, first, I mean, we have been able to confirm that those plant extracts, Pereira, Rauwolfia, Mitterrand, were able to indeed destroy different kinds of cancer cells. With Columbia, we worked on prostate. With Kansas University, we worked on pancreatic and ovarian cancer. We were able to work the effectiveness with different mechanisms of action at different stages of cancer, from inflammation with inhibition of NF-kappa B, regulation of 5-alpha reductase, to full apoptosis of cancer cells, to prostate cancer which doesn't respond to hormonal treatment anymore. We were able to also confirm the effectiveness of the synergy of action with chemotherapies. And we were, my father is something that he had already shown that in France with the chemotherapies of his time, like 5-FU. But now we have been able to work with docetaxel, gemcitabine, carboplatin. And we were working on mice and ovarian cancer, and we noticed that none of the mice were treated had developed metastasis. And we were like, but there is an emerging theory about cancer stem cells. Maybe we are on something here. And that's very important because cancer stem cells are now thought to be responsible for cancer relapse and cancer metastasis. They are a subfamily of cancer cells which are embryonic, have the ability to become any other kind of cancer wherever they are going to land in the body. And because they are dividing very slowly, they go under the radar, if I may say so, for chemotherapy, radiotherapy, which do not recognize them. They are only chemotherapy, radiotherapy are not selective. They are just destroying fast dividing cells. So they miss cancer stem cells. And it is important to know that if only maybe an average of 20% of cancer relapse, 100% of people who have had cancer are afraid to be the one who is going to relapse. So I thought if we can help 100% of the people who have had cancer not to live in fear and to fight those cancer stem cells, maybe we should do some research about that. So we first had, at Kansas University Medical Center, we first had studies on ovarian and pancreatic cancer stem cells, first in vitro, and everything disappeared. And then we said, we have to check that in vivo. So mice that received the extracts by gavage, like, people would take pills, supplements, 5 times a week. And we saw a beautiful inhibition of the number of cancer stem cells after when we do the histology of the mice.
Excuse me, Sylvie. Was the dose comparable to what could be taken safely by
Yes,
human beings?
Exactly. That's what we wanted to see with mice, because if we have different routes and different dosage, I mean, it's impossible to compare. But we compared really like, we looked at those mice exactly like if they were humans. We just made a calculation, adjust with their weight, and give the extract in their water, so they would, I mean, you cannot give capsules, of course, to mice, but in the water they get to eat it. I mean, it gets to their stomach like capsules. And we are just wrapping up a beautiful study on breast cancer stem cells. Again, on mice, and we were able to see compare those mice. Size of they were only treated for 2 weeks, because non-treated mice with grafted with breast cancer stem cells, they would all die within 2 weeks. So we only could treat the mice for a very short time, but we saw that immediately the size of the tumor was much smaller. The formation rate of the tumor was much more diminished. The survival, all the mice survived, were treated. They survived to the end of the experiment. Of course, at the end, we had to kill them to be able to look at all their organs and confirm again no toxicity, no side effect to the organs. So beautiful study, and that's the one that will be the next publication for the foundation. And we are hosting in June in San Diego a 3-day conference, June 26 to 29. And the idea is to turn this conference at the same time as a community to create awareness about the results that can be obtained with integrative medicine, with this research, but also have plenty of other doctors, integrative doctors, scientists come and give lectures for 3 days. And also we want this event to be a fundraiser in order to fund research on prostate cancer stem cells. Breast cancer is the #1 killer when it comes to cancer for women. Prostate cancer is the #1 killer when it comes to cancer for men. So it means we could help a lot of people concerned with those kind of cancer if we are able to confirm that those non-toxic plant extracts are able to destroy cancer stem cells.
It's fascinating.
I know, and that's why I love it, and that's why I continue to do that. That has been my life for the past 30 years, and has helped me move from a place of anger, of resentment to what they did to my father, to a place of really joy and gratefulness for the opportunity to conduct this research and share those beautiful results.
It's important to keep the positive energy flowing, because if just from a individual level, you can generate a lot of energy with hatred and anger, but you burn out after a while. So you have to find something positive to hold on to. The standard rejoinder to stories like your own are, where are the clinical trials? I mean, this is what you hear every day, I'm sure. So maybe you could talk about that a bit, because I see fantastic potential in what you're saying and in the medical journal articles that I've read of the effects. But we're haunted by and hounded by this question, right? Of, well, if it's so good, then prove it through in human studies, through clinical trials. And I'm wondering how you feel about that, how you respond to that.
So if we do a clinical study, we would need a number as a investigational drug, then we stop buying a dietary supplement, then the product is no longer available to people. Is that what the outcome you want? I guess no.
It's not what I want. It's the way the system works, right?
Exactly, and that's why it is very, very difficult to conduct clinical trials with dietary supplements, because the legislation is really contrary to that development. If you do not do the study, you are not credible. If you do the study, you are no longer in business as a dietary supplement. So you have to be a drug. Now, with natural products, it's extremely difficult to become a viable drug. You cannot patent nature. If you have no patent, then you are never going to have the return on investment based on the millions that are required for drug development.
Almost $1 billion, I think, in some cases nowadays.
So I think what is the most important is to be very honest and say, well, there is no human study, and here is the reason. But we have a lot of animal studies. Here they are all available on the website of the Beljanski Foundation, beljanski.org. And then there are already a lot of doctors using successfully those products who can, advise you, follow you. And then there was also a number of testimonials given by all those people, followed by all those doctors. Now, nobody is forcing you to use that. It's just, an information. You have it, and you do whatever you want with that.
If I were interested in trying to get that for myself, for example, would I go through Maison Beljanski? Is that one way?
Yes. So the products are available at Maison Beljanski as dietary supplements. And there is also coaching sessions. Also, if you are interested in learning more about the products, what would be exactly good for you. And on the website, there is also a map with you can see where we have doctors here in the States who are using the products, and see if they could be of benefits for you. Those products are not doing everything. They are not a silver bullet for everything. They can be beneficiary in some cases, and in some cases they are of no use, and it depends what you are looking for.
You said there's a conference coming up in late June. This is 2026 right now. This is not the first conference that you've had, but this one is in San Diego.
Yes.
And who is it for? Is it for practitioners? Is it for lay
It, it,
people?
it's for everybody. I mean, it is for lay people who are concerned with cancer. It's for integrative doctors who want to know what is the latest cutting edge discoveries in their field. It is for researchers who want to present the latest research. It's for companies who are in the dietary supplements and health business, who want to have a booth and meet possible clients and present what they have to offer.
And patients, I'm assuming.
Yes, patients, but also caregivers. There are a lot of caregivers, younger generation coming to those events because they have a father, an uncle, a mom who is sick at home, would not come to a conference, but they are kind of on a mission to find out what is best and bring that back to their loved one.
Well, I looked at the website for the conference, and you do have an excellent lineup of some of the leaders in the integrative medicine field for cancer. I think people who go there are going to learn a lot from some very well seasoned professionals in this field.
Yeah, the two first conferences, the one we had in Florida and in Texas, were very successful, and that's why we are continuing this adventure.
Hmm.
What do you think about the field of cancer stem cell research? Have you followed this? I mean, because of course the research now hinges on the effect of on cancer stem cells. It wasn't just an accident, right? That they chose that. It's the importance of this, but it doesn't seem to have gone as far or as fast as we would have thought 10 or 15 years ago. Are you aware of this, or you have any thoughts on this?
You mean conventional medicine?
Yes, I do mean. I mean, within the scientific community, you can find dozens and dozens of statements to the effect of the centrality of the topic of cancer stem cells as being the driving force within cancer itself, but you don't see that translated anywhere into treatment, into contemporary treatment.
Well, because they do not work on cancer stem cells. It turns out that our little plant extracts, and maybe that's the beauty of nature,
Uh-huh.
are able to adapt to the enemy
Mm-hmm.
and use different mechanism of action
Mm-hmm.
to interact with those cells. Again, I think it has to do with the specificity of cancer cells
Mm-hmm.
and healthy cells, and the difference at the level of the DNA, and the fact that those plant extracts are able to specifically recognize the openness of cancer DNA and intercalate between the two strands of the DNA.
Mm-hmm. And how about other substances? Have you, like,
So
for
my
instance,
father
yeah.
developed also
Mm-hmm.
other substances, and you were speaking of a clinical trial. Actually, we were able to have a clinical trial with little fragments of RNA, which are specific of the DNA of the bone marrow, help the bone marrow create white blood cells and platelets.
Mm-hmm.
There are also a number of conventional therapies, which are more kind of growth hormone family, to help people who are undergoing chemotherapy and white blood cells or platelets depleted, to create a new generation of blood cells. But very often those therapies are pretty toxic and painful. And my father came up with the idea of a nutritional approach. The chemotherapy is destroying a lot of blood cells because they are fast dividing cells, just like cancer cells. And then when you have chemotherapy, you have nausea, you don't eat well. So your gut doesn't receive all the nutrients that it needs to feed the bone marrow, and it is at the level of the bone marrow that we create white blood cells and platelets.
Mm-hmm.
So he came up with those little RNA fragments from a bacteria, which is naturally present in the intestine, and they have to be absorbed under the tongue very quickly, so they are not degraded, and they go directly to feed the bone marrow and help the body create white blood cells and platelets. So we were able with that product to have a clinical trial at Cancer Treatment Centers of America. We were able to do that because we looked at a population who was at the verge of thrombocytopenia, which is a loss of platelets. But technically, they had not developed thrombocytopenia. So technically, they were healthy patients. Forget about the fact that they had cancer. So forget about they were at the verge of thrombocytopenia because they were battling cancer and had already received several rounds of nasty chemotherapy. They did not have thrombocytopenia, so they were deemed healthy. And then we were able to have this clinical trial showing that none of the patients enrolled had to have blood transfusion. They were all did well, and we were able to see that their bone marrow was kind of protected during the extra rounds of chemotherapy, and better able to produce platelets than they were at the beginning. So very nice paper.
Well, how about combining with other natural agents or other foods that like green tea, curcumin, and so forth?
You know, when you want to do research, you want to research one ingredient at a time. Otherwise, if you have a mix, you don't know what is really the active one, and
Too complicated.
It loses. I mean, then people are telling you, so which one is the active one? And when first time I came to Columbia University, they told me, so which one are we going to study? Because there will be only money for one, Pereira, Rauwolfia, vomitoria.
Yeah.
And I knew that both were active against prostate cancer. I knew they had both slightly different mechanism of action, but it was like choosing between two kids, you know.
So
I said, I can't choose. And so they did the in vitro and in mice studies separately. And then we had kind of a mini study on humans with a mix of Pereira, Rauwolfia, vomitoria that we called Prostabel. The problem was that the men enrolled in the study were supposed to have a biopsy at the beginning and a biopsy at the end. And in between, they did so well with the products that their PSA became normal, and they did not want to have the second biopsy. So technically, the study failed because the patients did not want to have the second biopsy. But it was nevertheless a very satisfying result. So it's kind of confirmation of my father's approach.
And I'm sure that this conference is going to greatly increase public awareness and interest in the whole topic.
I hope so. And also all the other doctors, scientists who are going to come and present, because there are a lot of very exciting developments now in the realm of integrative medicine. I would like to say again, thank you so much. I mean, and having seen you with your dad, I mean, this is really moving for me. I wish I had my dad again, still to be able to share those results with him, and so cherish what you have.
Thank you. I see your father behind you, looking over your shoulder. He's with you. Well, thank you very much for being here, Sylvie, and we wish you all, of course, all the best at the conference and the continued research that you're doing. It's very exciting work, and we're going to follow it with great interest.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
For now, for the Moss Report, I'm Ben Moss. How are you healing today?